Okay, so good evening, all. Let's start going because people are still joining. Anyway, they can join us as we move on. Welcome again. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk films. Uh, Prasanth, good day. We have our guest here. He's Prasanth Vijay. He's a filmmaker. He has done some exceptional works and he's one of the popular faces in the film festival circuits. Uh, his association with Vallath goes a long back. That's a different story altogether. Uh, this is it's very important that we are having him for this session because Let's Talk Film used to be a weekly affair. We used to have one talk in a week, but then after a short break, we are resuming it series, and this time we are making it in a monthly affair. And this is first in the series of the monthly talk series, Let's Talk Film, and Prashant is the first speaker we have here, uh, and it's indeed a quite privilege and pleasure to have you here as a guest, Prashant. Uh, so, uh, to give you a brief introduction about what we are doing, Vallath, as you know, is a group of people who are passionate about language, English language, literature, and trying to find a space, a career, or a medium of expression through the language. And as part of exploring the different possibilities of language, we try to bring in different disciplines that where we can find the mode of expression. And film definitely is one of the medium that we need to explore. Uh, so, what we do in this series is we engage with people, personalities from the film field, different from different uh, aspects. Like we have had interactions with actors, uh, editors, uh, directors, filmmakers, film critics. So this is a series where uh, we have an informal discussion or a conversation about how the medium works and how you have engaged film as a medium of expression for yourself. To start with, Prashant, you are a self-taught filmmaker. So that means you are not bringing to the art a baggage from the training that usually one gets when you start making a film. But your films do not have that rawness is a different thing that we will discuss in detail later on. But being a self-taught filmmaker, I'm sure many of the people who are listening to you right now may get inspired from your story or your experience or your journey. So let's start from that. How did you find that film is your medium? How did you start making the filmmaking, and how did you teach yourself in this art?
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me. As you said, it's an old, very long back association, and it's always a pleasure to associate with Vallath. I think, except a few of us, a lot of people who are in this meeting right now won't understand the period that I talk about, the 80s and 90s. It's a completely different world altogether. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and so I was fortunate enough to have a literature background in my family. My grandfather was an author, linguist, and all, but he passed away before I was born. But that environment was there in the family. Um Also, some of the memories I have of film watching was walking back after watching the late night screening of Adu Sanandaram with my parents, and clarifying the doubts about the counting of stairs and all. It's a vivid memory I have. So I must have been very very young back then. So. Even in terms of the choice of selection of movies and all, which we went to watch as a family, all uh, that was there. Some sort of curation was there, uh, mainly because of a couple of things. One, the avenues to watch films were very rare back then. There was only one channel, but I think we had a TV also much later than that. So movie theaters were the only avenue to watch movies. And uh, I think in my home also there was no culture of of going to all the movies on a weekend. I've heard later many of my friends say that they used to have this tradition of going to the movie theater every weekend and see whatever is available, all the new releases. We didn't have that. So that kind of a curation happened, and I think it helped somewhere. Uh, and another thing which would have immensely helped in my so it sounds a little funny, but I almost decided to make a filmmaker back when I was 8 years old, when I was in third standard, which is quite possible now, but not very likely back then, because you don't know how films are made. There was no way to find out. So now even a small kid has an idea, because the camera is a very universally available device, and okay, you shoot, and this is some form of a video, and not very different from the films you have. But back then it was not the case. So one thing that helped me was that my uncle, my mother's brother, had tried his hand in script writing. So he used to write scripts, commercial ones, but unfortunately none of the projects materialized. Many of them stopped at various stages of production. uh, the only thing he got made was a documentary. But these scripts were there at our ancestral home. And so as kids, this was one of the materials available for us to read. And we used to, so that form of a script was very familiar to me and my cousins and all, uh, at a very younger age. So movie starts the journey from scripts written on paper, created, the characters created on paper, like a story. So literature was familiar to me, and so cinema was a thing that has its origin in literature, was information I got very early on, which really helped. Because otherwise you can't aspire making movies. The means of production of a movie is not in your hands at all. None of them is in your hands. But even in this paper you can make some form of a movie, was a revelation back then. So I remember that in the vacation after my third standard was the first time I attempted to write a script. Uh, and then in the subsequent vacations many such attempts happen, all different scripts. I don't think I finished every time I had someone as partner, but none of the times I finished the scripts, which looking back then, or looking back after I started, I mean, I was in a position to think seriously about filmmaking. Now I realize that it is because of the shortcomings in me as a writer. Uh, so, as a writer, I now realize that I can't create something out of thin air. I don't have the imagination to create something out of thin air. I need some base material, or I need a partner who is very good at, uh, who has good imagination, who can create things out of thin air. So those are the things I corrected when I took up filmmaking later on. So that was a start. That was a start. But then, since as I said, the times were different, and even though my parents, especially my mother, had a hint that I strongly like filmmaking, that was not at all encouraged, because it was not at all a very practical path back then. And so, and I was a reasonably good student also, so that put an extra pressure on following the tested path. So like any youth in Kerala even now, surprisingly, with so many options, but back then those were not very apparent. So I ended up joining engineering, and taking up a software job. Then also I and this software job was in Infosys. That was a second stage, I think, because for the first time I found a lot of people who have this same problem as me, that the lack of belonging was there. And for the first time, during this time, I one of the some of the avenues I was you use the word, the expression, a form of expression for to describe films earlier. So it was for me, films was exactly that, because growing up I understood that, even though, so ultimately I think, I always say that given a choice, I would become a writer, because that's a much easier job to do. Being a filmmaker is a, uh, physically, mentally, it's a torture. It's a torture that only crazy people will take up. So given an option, I would have become a writer, but because I am not confident, or I don't see myself as a very good writer, I took up this, because uh, here, a lot of things can be supplemented by the people around us, the collaborators I get, and ultimately I can make a product which I can claim, a work of art which I can claim as my own, with giving due credit to all the collaborators. So that was films for me. It was my medium of expression, which uh, covers my shortcomings, and which uses uses some of the strengths I have. So those strengths I discovered over time, where one, I mean, I later read that. Steve Jobs also said the same thing, but I didn't know in those words. But the thing was that I was at this cross section of technology and humanities, and probably business also. So I had interest in all these things. Now looking back, I don't know whether I cultivated these interests so that it would ultimately help in film, or it is the other way. But when it comes to filmmaking, I am genuinely interested in every aspect of it. So like, uh, all the technical things, all the artistic things, and I end up doing many of these things also, because I deal mostly with very low budget films. So probably all this, something, I mean, maybe because I made that decision very early on, at an age of 8, I have been molding my life in a way that everything was leading to this, or everything I was doing was ultimately helping me in my becoming a filmmaker. So maybe, so that's, I think, the self taught part that you are asking about. uh, and I think one, sorry, I took a detour. So the thing, chronologically, we were at Infosys, and Infosys gave me a lot of people, put me with a lot of people who had similar aspirations and all. Interesting enough, my second film and third film are written by people whom I met back in Infosys in 2008. 2006, 8, during that period. So and again, it gave me avenue. So for the first time, I became there was an internal magazine. So I became in the editorial, one of the editors of the magazine, and that gave me an exposure to collaborating, making people collaborate to create a work. Uh, so again, I was discovering that this is something I really enjoy. Again, weirdly enough, this should logically, uh, the logical next step would be, I'm realizing that I'm good at directing films, I should join film school. But I didn't do that, because I didn't have the confidence. I thought, okay, this meant that I'm a good manager, let me go and study MBA. So I went I went and did that. So MBA next 2 years, and then I joined, I worked at several places till 2012. I was doing this, and 2012 again, this bug uh, came back. And this time, what was changed? So what changed over the years was that, one big change was that filmmaking became digital. So I remember being overjoyed as a school kid, reading the first thing about first news about digital filmmaking and all, and how it can change things and all. So ultimately it happened around that period, 2010 and all. Really mainstream cinema also caught up with the digital filmmaking, and it became possible for a person with limited resources and no background, like me, also to try my hand at it. So that's what resulted in my first short film. So when I went to shoot the film, I had absolutely no experience of anything related to filmmaking. Oh, the only thing was that I had a fair idea how things are done. That is entirely thanks to the internet. So internet, I think 2004 or something was the first time when I had a computer and internet connection or dial-up connection at my home, and I began to explore what is out there. And during that time, there was no movie streaming, there was no movie even pirated downloads also, because this dial-up connection won't allow you to do any of such things. The only thing available were the film scripts. So I used to download the PDFs and the text documents of film scripts, and I used to do this, thinking that this would be the only thing I would get to expose myself to these films. So many of those films I watched many years later. Many of them I still haven't watched. I have the I just have read the scripts. So that from then on, the my film school started through internet. So all that led to the short film in 2012, Anguleechalitham. I think that's a journey. And again, it's not that self learning is not something that ever stops. Each with each film, I'm learning new things. And as you said, I mean, baggage maybe not there, but I make a lot of stupid mistakes also. That's because you don't know uh, the basic logistics. Also, there was nobody to teach me, so that will lead me to mistakes. And of course, making mistakes and learning is the best way to learn.
So you have learned the art hands-on.
Yes.
Okay. So that brings us to your first film, short film, as you said, that announced your arrival into the industry. It's called Anguleechalitham, or in English, it's called Manipulated by Fingers, which is what I have found to be one of the most brilliant allegory on man's craving for material pleasures. Or food is the image used here. To people craving for food. Uh, so I find it as an allegory for man's never-ending quest for material pleasures. So, I know that I have read somewhere that this is based on a story that you have found and you converted it into a short film. Let's talk about how you chanced upon this story and how you how you molded this into this format. And most importantly, what took me by surprise, real surprise, is the presence of Kathakali maestro Nelliyod Vasudevan playing a rather negative shaded role in this short film. And he was brilliant in that. That's another development. He's a maestro of expressions. But then, how did you convince him? You have no history in filmmaking, you have absolutely no background in filmmaking, but you got such a maestro to act in your film. So, two things I would like to know. One, how did you uh, design this storyline for the film? Second thing, how did you manage to get Million? That's a personal interest that I have.
Yeah. When you're asking the question, my answer will tie back to many of the things I mentioned before in that chronological way. So one thing, the story goes back to Infosys. So I said this magazine editing and meeting people there. One of the people I met, who later became my wife, was Jessie. Even after I left Infosys to join the MBA school, she was working there. And there was this internal blogs in Infosys, and people used to blog a lot, and people were very creative in that. I also used to blog when I was there. So she would send me whatever catches her interest in mail. So one of the stories she sent was this, and it was a series of 3 stories, and she was like, "You should definitely read this." And I read this, and I was like blown away. This would be back in 2010. And then I had no idea to make a film out of it or anything. I had this vague dream of making films, but even at the MBA school, the business school also, my problem was that I didn't have any collaborator. Everyone around is has only one goal: just get out of here and get the highest paying jobs. There was nobody to discuss films or anything. Again, this community, so by that time Twitter had come in 2009, and I was building a community of like-minded people around the world in that. So many critics, filmmakers who later became really famous, and all, I met through Twitter and the online circles we had back then. So the story came from there. So after 2 years, when I decided I would make my first short film, uh, even though I considered a lot of things, I came back to this story because it was still having that charm. And the story is quite different from what you see in the short film. It was a very bare-bone thing, which has a setting in the wild west or something. The character, I think the character names were same, but the setting was very different. It resembled a western movie. I took it, and I found that it can be allegoric. The story was very plain. It didn't have any. Now it looks allegoric because of the elements I added. The small things I put in the background, in the soundtrack and all, it becomes a allegory for the craving and materialism and all those things. I mean, people have read out a lot of things, like it's about um, alcohol addiction, it's about globalization. I mean, a lot of things. I have deliberately put some
Even
things.
political things.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so that was an interesting thing. As I said before, I don't have the confidence to come up with something from scratch and make it into a full script or or a novel or anything like that. But this was there. This was a solid base for me to play with. So I added layers. I added all these things to that, and that gave. So I think that that's a very comfortable place for me. Take an existing material and add layers of my own to it. So that's how it started. And then back then I was living in Bangalore. First thought I'll make shoot it in the Raja market in Bangalore, because I used to frequent there and I really loved the narrow lanes and all. But I didn't have any base there. And so ultimately the decision was that I will shoot in Trivandrum, in Chala market. And then coming to the actor, so the lead actors, one of the lead actor is Arun, who was also the co-producer, whom I met online and we became friends and all. The other actor was Nikhil, who was my childhood friend, who later became the producer of my first feature film, Athisayangalude Venal. So those were fixed, and those were they were both involved in the scripting and all from the beginning. We didn't have a person for the protagonist, actor for the protagonist. So again, going back to the childhood, I said I attempted the first script when I was in the vacation of third standard. The person who I attempted it with was Sandeep. Sandeep was my friend from Kozhikode. I was studying Kozhikode back then. So Sandeep, we reconnected after a long period. We reconnected again thanks to the internet and Orkut. I'm sure that nobody here knows about
Might have
Orkut.
heard about
So
Orchid. Yeah.
yeah, so through Orkut, Sandeep reconnected with me, and we have been. So Sandeep, by that time, was a scientist, and he was a poet. He was a writer. All those things. Sandeep Kalathimekad is his full name. Uh, and I had narrated this, shared this script with Sandeep. Sandeep has a very he's also a Kathakali singer. He has very deep connections with that world. So he suggested that Nelliod is the person for this, and they are family. Their families are friends. His father and all are close friends with Ashan. So his father ultimately talked to him. So I didn't have to do any. That hard part was done by Sandeep and his dad, and that's how it happened. So I am not so well versed with Kathakali, and this was the first time when I went to meet him. It was the first time I'm seeing him, and later I wrote about him when he passed away. Nelliyodashan passed away. I really think it was like, I mean, I at that time I couldn't fathom the favor that he was doing to us, who are like, all of us were newcomers. I didn't know his greatness back then, but he was just like a normal fresher actor, listening to the instructions. And we had a very short schedule to shoot because of the budgetary constraints. We had 2 days to shoot that whole hotel portion, and he was there all the time till late night. He skipped his food because it was a place where non-veg food was cooked. He had no complaints. He sat at one corner. He couldn't eat. We couldn't get the proper food he needs. He skipped his prayers, which is very particular about. All that he did without complaints. And the payment we gave was so, I mean, I can't even think. It was such embarrassingly low payment, which so all that he accepted all that and he did that. So I still can't understand. It's only his love and care for Sandeep's family that made him did that. So that was the part. The only thing, later, much later, I watched Nelio Dashan playing the Don Quixote role in the Kathakali. And then I felt bad for having him wear that kurta. I thought exposing his torso would have added much to the character. I mean, made him look. I don't know. I mean, I think that was a mistake I did looking back.
Yeah, that would have given
So back
another
then,
edge to the character.
edge to the character. So back then, my idea was that he should look very pleasant and very satviga. So that was my aim. But I mean, using his form also would have been a different thing. That was the thing I felt.
Okay, so but then that was a very remarkable entry that you have made into film, and that brings us to your first film, Athisayangalude Venal, or the Summer of Miracles. This film is a marked difference from your debut short film. Uh, while your debut short film was more of an allegory or a surreal feel to it, the Summer of Miracles is deeply rooted in reality. It's about a 9-year-old boy who is obsessed with the idea of being invisible. And being invisible is a trait that he has picked up from his father who has gone missing, a father who is scientist who gone missing. So he wants to become invisible and uh, do things that he wanted his father to do, or something like he wanted to get his life in proper tracks. But into that premise, you have added a lot of very pertinent social issues like cyber stalking or the uh, problems of a single mother. A lot many issues that we find them around us. Even though this story is based on loosely based on the story by H.C. Wells, the way you have used these contemporary issues woven into this main narrative made it so very relatable for us. So, can you just explain this process? How you developed this structure for the Summer of Olympics?
Yeah. So actually, one thing I would clarify is that it's not based on HTML. I mean, the HTML's
That's a
initial
starting point,
plan.
maybe.
Yeah. So it was a starting point for the character of Anand. That's where his ideas came from, not ours. Actually, the journey started from Amguleechalitham. Amguleechalitham gave me some address as a filmmaker, but not much. When you say mark my entry and all, it sounds a little grand, but it was not like that. Because even if you check the YouTube views of that short film is very less. I think it hasn't crossed 8,500 till now. It's been over 10 years. So somewhere it's like those niche things. But I still I'm sure that it's still fresh. Like you saw it a couple of days back and you found the idea, everything fresh. So it's something like that. It has a very niche audience, but it's somehow not getting popular or not getting the reach that it, I don't know. I don't know. I can't say it deserves, but yeah, it
Yeah,
should have
true.
got.
You should have got. Yeah.
But in some ways, it marked marked me as a filmmaker. In some circles, so one of the people who spoke good was N.S. Madhavan. He had written about it. So I also got a confidence that okay, I can do something. Uh, So I began meeting people again online. So one of the people I met was Anish Palyal. Anish is a practicing psychiatrist in Kozhikode. We met, and we after online we physically met, and we started talking about films, and we had a lot of things to talk about movies, because we shared lot in common about movies, our sensibilities and all those things. And Anish was active as a practicing himself as a writer also. I'm talking about 2013 14 and all. So he had a lot of story ideas. He shared with me, and he was asking if there is anything that interests me. We tried a couple of ideas, and finally, I think in 2015 and all, I made the decision that okay, we have to finalize one thing, and uh, work on my first feature. Incidentally, it was then Nikhil who acted with Arun in the Arun and Nelly Odashan in the short film Anguleechalitham. He offered that. We had shared this thread with him also. Like it's about a boy who wants to be invisible. What if the parents and the family around around him, starts pretending he's invisible? What will happen? So that was interesting start for him. So he said, if you people are serious about developing that film, I am interested in funding it. So that was a start. Okay, so we have a producer. That's like a big uh, uh, green signal that we can get. So we worked on it. I think we worked probably over a month, over a year on the script, and finally it was ready. The all the basic things that you said actually came from Anish. So that the basic premise of the story, and Anish and I both share this belief that uh, a narrative should not be just to say a film should not be just to say a narrative. It should have more layers, and there should be. And as I explored in Anguleechalitham, I was also interested in putting a lot of not so obvious details around in the film, which people who are keen and interested can read out and get another perspective of the film. So both of our ideas were similar in this, and these lead to the layers in the film. Like we wanted to explore the social aspect. So invisibility became a theme. So it started. I was interested because I think every kid is interested in becoming invisible, and then it made us think that why is that. And then I realized that this invisibility, because there is a power structure in a family. The parents are at the top, and the kids, the children are below them in the power structure. And whoever is below in the power structure always have this thing inside them uh, upset that structure. And this is a power that would this is a aid the a superpower is an aid that would help them to upset the power structure. I mean, these are my thoughts. So we thought we'll explore this. Anand is a person who is like and I was seriously thinking about childhood also. Like childhood, i don't uh, I don't look back at childhood uh, uh, and think of it as a happy time. I think of a time when I was really powerless. I was really under the mercy of a lot of people, not able to make decisions. And also, like how we have portrayed Anand, you are in the middle of many conflicting ideas, and all of these are elders, and you are supposed to listen to all of them, and you're supposed to obey all of them, and all of them are supposed to be right, but their ideas are so conflicting. So how do you make sense of any of these things? So I thought it was very vulnerable, uh, a very bad place to be in. So that
Especially when you are
memories of.
creative.
Yeah. So that's another thing. I mean, if you are a person who is blindly receiving all these things, I don't think you have these problems. If you are a person who is thinking also, then all these are problems. So those all this. So I think Anish also must have had a similar childhood, because I remember his uncle, who was again instrumental in his starting reading at a very early age and all. He watched Anguleechalitham at a screening in Kozhikode later, and he was very emotional watching that. So probably he must have seen a young Anish in Anand. So that gave me a proof that okay, this is a childhood we shared. So yeah, all those thoughts were coming together uh, in Athisayangalude Venal. Again, Anish's experience as a psychiatrist must have helped. I'm thinking his experience as a father had helped. At that time, I was not a father, but he had a boy of around similar age. So all those must have helped in bringing life to the character and the situations and all. And So yeah, I mean the other layers of the social layers and all. So we were trying to play with what all we can do with invisibility, the social invisibility, the in a family how invisibility is there. So all those things. I mean, we had planned a lot of things. Then we realized that it was an overkill. So the one of the in betweens drafts had much more of this, but then we cut down because we thought it will be an overkill. Again, this the one thing we both have a concern about, which is really bad, is that are we being too loud? Are we being on your face? Which is not the case. We are being too subtle actually. So that
Yeah.
level of subtlety we are looking for, or the threshold of subtlety is much lower. So when I cross that, I get upset and I try to bring it down, which is not a good thing because it affects conveying the message to people. People miss
Yeah.
that.
Subtlety is something that is your signature style, because
Hmm.
in your second film, Daayam, or The Inheritance, which is a coming of age tale of a teenage girl handling the bereavement grief of her mother and her troubled relation with father. Uh, Here also, you are playing with very intense emotions, but then you did it in a very subtle manner, and you have done a brilliant job at that. That's a different thing. But subtlety is the way, the medium that you engage to tell a story. So you have just right now hit the right point where you said that subtlety is what marks you out, even when you are dealing with very intense emotions, as in Daayam, where this girl is faced with trauma of sudden death of her mother and the change in the power equations inside the family, her relation with father, her relation at school, everything happening for a teenage girl. But then the film on a whole is very subtle. So is that a deliberate decision?
Well, in Adhishangala Venal, it was a deliberate decision because I can't do that. I mean, something within me revolts if I try to be more loud and all. So I understood that this was my thing, and then what happened was that, I mean, because you are a careful viewer, you can appreciate that subtlety. What happens is that uh, so there was one reviewer, one critic, to whom I had mentioned about this point of subtlety, and that person was like, "But there is nothing subtle in your film," which then I understood that all those layers are getting missed because they are being too subtle, which actually became a vice to me, a handicap to my film in many ways. I realized, there was a very well-known critic who told me that. I don't think your film will go around in festivals because there is nothing political about it. But I think there was a lot of political stuff being discussed in Adhishangala Venal, but in a very, very different way. It is not talking about politics in the sense, but it is a lot about politics in personal life, and even the changes that happened in Indian society politically, we have tried to address. So luckily, a lot of people at many places are have found out that. So that gives me some relief that okay, that effort is not missed completely, or it's not my illusion that I've placed those things. At least some people are able to get it. So yeah, I mean, all those things are like this invisible. There's a very vague mention about Aadhaar and all, but it is put there for a reason. uh, we because
Yeah,
you
true.
connect those things and you get something else. And there are many such things, how uh, supposedly um, uh, rational scientific minded people are also drawn to finding science within the ancient literature. All those stuff are there for a reason. And there are commentaries about a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, the subtlety has been more of a baggage for me in that film. So even in the interviews and all I have given back then, I said I've decided not to be this subtle the next time. This is one decision I make. But then I ended up doing almost the same thing. Actually, Daayam also had a very different origin story. I mean, it was not at all planned as to be. I tried out different subjects, different projects to be my second project. Again, the same case with Anguleechalitham. The Venal also gave me some address as a filmmaker who has done a feature film. But again, that widespread is not happening. Uh, uh, Not enough to get me a next film. Maybe it can get me a meeting with an actor. So one of the things I realized again was that not having established actors again becomes a handicap in people taking your film seriously. And uh, commercially also, it's not a good thing. So again, I with my address, that or with the people who liked Anguleechalitham, who are ready to support me, I am able to get meetings with actors, but they are not keen to do a film with me because it's not good enough. A commercial film is all that they consider as a proper film. So a lot of things, those things happened, and the pandemic came, and I was tired of waiting, and I decided I'll make another small film. All those, uh, yeah. And then again, as I mentioned, Indu Lakshmi was my colleague in Infosys back there, and I discussed whether she has any ideas, and this was partly inspired from her own grief of losing her mother. And we worked on that script, and that's how it came. Again, I wanted to do a different yeah, again, Hindu script was much more dramatic. It was much more loaded with emotions, and I had to cut it down. I had to find a mid path. Uh, Cinematically, also, I wanted to explore different, maybe moving camera, not so many static shots and all. Again, it was with the discussion with the cameraman, all those changed. He convinced me that this is a style which is he hasn't seen Athisayangalude Venal, but on his own he suggested that since it is mainly about people uh, sitting and talking and people coming entering rooms and talking, a moving camera or a handheld camera won't be good for this. So he convinced me that static would be better. I was also convinced. So again, it ended up having the same signature or visual language in terms of shots, in terms of um, lack of camera movements and all, as Athisayangalude Venal. Again, subtlety, I think, is I realized, and I somehow came in terms of to the fact that yeah, I can't do more than this. But one thing I did differently from Athisayangalude Venal is that I didn't shy off from. So subtlety is one thing. Another thing is helping what all you do as a filmmaker to help audience connect with that. So Athisayangalude Venal, I was not so lenient with that. So for example, one of the things, one specific thing that help a viewer connect with the film is background score, which can really in a visceral level. So Anguleechalitham didn't have any background score. So that was one experiment we wanted to try out, and I think we did it. I mean, I was happy with the result. Uh, Athisayangalude Venal had very minimal scores at places, at different places, and um, Yeah, I mean, I think a different filmmaker would have had much more background score in that film. When it came to Daayam, what happened was, I had a discussion with the composer, and there were points where we decided to have background music. And then Varki, the composer, came back with suggestions of what about putting here. Then I was like, okay, what if it connects with more people? Obviously, I also want my films to connect with more people. So then I thought this would be something that would not really affect my sensibilities, because it is not filling the entire movie with background music. It's, I mean, I'm okay with that. I didn't think of it, but when he suggested, I was okay with that. So I think Dayam that way has much more hand holding in terms of people appreciating the film or people connecting the film. So yeah, I mean, maybe another learning I got. And I
But then, even while talking about being very subtle in the way you depict a vision or the present the story, the talents that you have brought into the films are amazing. Like we spoke about Mediodhan, like Kathakali Maestro being part of your debut short film. Uh, the actor that played the protagonist in Athisayangalude Venal, he is amazing talent. So is Adira, I think her name is Adira
Aditya
Rajesh,
Rajiv. Yeah.
Adira Rajesh, who played the teenager girl in Daayam, The Inheritance. Like for Athisayangalude Venal, I think you had a 2 week theater workshop, acting workshop for all your actors. But then the talents, they are freshers, like we haven't seen them anywhere else. But they are so much into the character. They bring so much out of the trauma that the characters are going through. Even when you are saying that you are being very subtle, you cut down on what the writer has written there. But then the actors are amazing. They're outstanding. So how do you train them? How do you handle them?
Yeah, so I think one word that would explain all of this is desperation. I mean, all of these choices were because we didn't have anyone else available. I mean, not to be too unfair to them. So I explained how Nelliyodashan became part of it. Actually, no other actor came to the discussion, because Sandeep had made the suggestion at the beginning. We didn't think, and everything went. Then coming to Chandrakiran and Athisayangalude Venal, we actually had a very long process of auditioning child artists, and we couldn't find anyone. I mean, one, I had no address as a filmmaker, and many people were not interested. One thing, it's very difficult to even now I find it very difficult to put across a casting call that reaches people. Like, if it's a commercial film, you'll be like loaded with
Yeah,
responses and all. But
a commercial film with a proper banner.
yes, and but on the other hand, it's very difficult to even to spread this word that I want these actors and all. So having all that, I think we would have met some. Uh, I mean, under 10 people, maybe 5, 6 people we would have met, and they were all, as you said, coming with some baggages of how to act and all. One of the kids was doing a lot of films, but he would only listen to his father. I mean, I should give instruction to his father, and his father had some kind of a language to communicate with him, and all. I found it very weird and tiring. Uh, so finally, someone told that NK Girish, who works with Manorama News, he has a son of this age. So only the age we knew, around 8, 9 years. So I contacted Girish, and he was like, I don't know whether he acts, but his Malayalam is good. He talks well. So we visited him. I and my cousin visited him, and we talked to him. We gave him a scene to try out. Basically, we wanted to know. So one problem we found that was that people, the kids won't cry I mean, they when even when they try to act like they are sad, they have a smile because they are kids. But then we talked to Chandru. So his reaction also was like, I don't like crying. Why should I do that? But then we gave him a situation. We could. I mean, he did something and which convinced us. One fact is that we were desperate also because the shooting date is approaching and we don't have anyone. So we thought he showed some promise, which so another key person in this whole story of dealing with actors in be it Athisayangalude Venal or Daayam is Hari Lal, who is my associate director. He is the one who takes care of the acting department. So Hari saw this videos and he said, "Yeah, I mean, he's good. We'll get the things out of him." Then this workshop came, 2 weeks, and Hari has all this. He does acting, actor training, and he has a set of exercises, all those stuff. So that was finally, and then Chandra Kiran is a brilliant person. He's a brilliant boy. That's the thing that helped us most, I think. You mentioned Neliod and Chandrakiran and Adira. Essentially, my process is the same with any of them. The way I talk is the same. Probably I'll be a little more respectful to Nelio Dashan, but otherwise the language and all is mostly the same. This is what I want. This is what you have to do. And I mean, people complain that I talk with kids also the same way I talk with adults, but that's exactly how it was. And he could process it. That's his brilliance. And some of the things we did by trick also, like he didn't know what he was doing, but we said something else and he was reacting to that, and that's how the performance came, which I think inevitably happens when you deal with child actors. Yeah, I mean, it was a combination of all of that.
And as for
Adira
Adira,
was Adira was a different, I mean, totally different thing. Again, we were trying to find we tried with a lot of actors. Again, teenage was again a difficult thing, and there were people who later became have did other roles in films, told me that we are not interested in independent films, as if independent films is such a bad thing. I don't know. And lot of such things when we were looking at girls from theater background. None of that worked out. And very accidentally, so Harilal was staying at Kochi and trying to do auditions and all. He had cast the rest of the relatives and all those people. Still, there was a vacuum at the
thanks.
middle. He was staying at a director friend's place in Kochi, and Adira and her father came there to meet this director, asking for chances or something. And Hari happened to meet them at the lift as they were entering the lift, and he went back and asked the director friend who they were and whether he could call her again the next day. Adira came and gave the audition, and that audition was markedly different from anything that we had seen, because normally when a actor comes and we gives the scene, they just start doing it. But Adira first asked, who is this character? Why is she in this situation? All those stuff. And so Hari reported this back then, and Hari said that indicated that she was different. And the performance was really different. And then we later learned that she was trained. She studied acting from New York Film Academy, and she's based out of LA. And she was visiting her parents in Kochi after a gap of 5 years due to the pandemic and all. And it is in that short window we happened to meet her, and that really changed the fate of Dayam. So that's Adra's story, and Adra is totally different. I mean, she was like we were seeing this totally different being of a trained actor for the first time. So she can't read Malayalam, so she made her mother read the whole script. She would mark her dialogues in one color, others dialogues mentioning her in another color, people who are speaking to her in one color, all those things. And she has a very methodical approach to it, which really helped me, which really took the pressure off me in terms of making her act. Yeah.
It was just brilliant in that. Brilliant.
So
But
all
then,
those scenes where she cried, she was actually crying. We didn't use glycerin at all in the film. And
okay,
in
so now that
Chandru's case, we were forced to use glycerin, and someone had shot a video. I think I have it back then, where I am spending 10 minutes to convince him to use glycerin. Yeah.
Adira might have given you a proper introduction to how a trained actor can be handled. Because your next film, the new film,
Yeah.
Ithiri Neram or A Little While, which is being ready for release, has accepted trained popular actors in the lead role. You have Roshan Mathew, who is making waves not just in Malayalam but in different languages in India, along with Zarin Shihab doing the protagonist. Uh, are you excited about moving to the big league? Like you have been saying that the absence of stars is affecting the film or the acceptance of the film that you do. Now you have a star like Roshan Mathew, who is recognizable across the languages, across India. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, I am also hoping it would make a difference.
is it
Again,
into post production now? Is it into
yeah,
production?
it is almost done. We are just waiting for some songs to be recorded. That's the only pending thing. And after that, the final sound mixing. It's almost ready. Um, and again, it the whole thing happened very organically. I was, for a difference, I was not chasing stars. This again, Ithiri Neram was written by another friend I met in Infosys, Vishag Shakti. Vishag and I also reconnected after a while, when I was when Amguleechalitham was having its festival run, and no, Athisayangalude Venal was having its festival run and all. And since then, we have also been discussing various options for stories and all. And this actually came about from a Facebook post, and I saw a potential for a film there, and someone suggested to me, and then with Vishak we developed, and the script was ready. And when I saw the script, the final stage, I felt that this has more commercial potential than any of the things I have so far worked on. So I was wondering, why don't I explore it? And I didn't know how to go about it, because I have this history of rejections and all. And the only friend, so again, with even though these films are not getting a uh, very wide recognition, I'm building a community of people who are who really love these works. So I think that's the biggest thing about. I think that's one key difference. If you make a niche film, the people in that niche really like that film. So one of the person who really liked Athisayangalude Venal was Geo Baby. So we were connected. So Geo had his film Kunyadevam back then. We were all the festival rounds were all going together. So Geo watched Athisayangalude Venal and he really liked it. So Geo was my only. I think even now, just before Ithiri Neram, the only person I know in the film industry is Geo Baby. So I gave this script to Geo. Uh, Asking him help to schedule it. I mean, just give me a rough idea how much budget it would need, how much days it would need, so that I can meet a producer. So Gio was just then fresh out of the success of Great Indian Kitchen, and he read the script and he asked me, "What if we produce it?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be very happy if you do that because I don't have to run around looking." So that's the start of it. So Gio had just done so he asked, whom do you want as actor? And he Roshan was one of the first choices we had, and Gio had just acted in a movie with Roshan. He said, "We are friends, I can just connect with you." And uh, the call with Roshan happened, and we discussed the script. He read the script, he had some clarifications, and then Gio said, "Why don't you watch Athisayangalude Venal?" And I sent the link to Roshan. Then I till then there was no direct communication between me and Roshan. It was through Geo. Roshan got my phone from number from Geo and called me and said, I have half an hour more to finish in the film, but I have decided I want to work with you. So Roshan became a big fan, huge fan of Athisayangalude Venal. He claims he has talked about the film to like lakhs of people till I mean by now. So that was a really nice thing to happen because uh, he became part of the project due to the merit of this script uh, and the film I did. This was before Daayam. This happened before Daayam, and so that was how it was. And Zarin came on very later on after I watched market screening of Atom back in 2022, and I watched Atom, and I was also looking for actor. Getting the right actors was proving tough because I wanted that character. That character has a certain sophistication of a person who has spent considerable time outside Kerala, so which I was not getting from the actors we were considering. So Zarin, I found to be perfect. Then the film also has Nandu Chetan, who is a very seasoned actor who has like 40 years of experience. Anand Manmadan, who is upcoming, who is also, I
He's
think,
also a brilliant actor.
is a brilliant actor, and I think he will compensate for that generation of comedy actors we lost. He's one of the
True.
person who can really
He's very
compensate
flexible.
that. Yeah, and so again, coming to the acting part, I think my challenge in this was managing the different styles of acting of each of these people. Um, because again, I think Roshan is someone who is comparable with Adira in his methodical way. Uh, and it really helped that Roshan and Zarin had a theater background, and that they had done a theater camp together so many years back. So they were really good friends, even when coming to the film. That really helped the film. Uh, Anand also became Anand and Nanducharan also became really quickly part of this gang. They became a gang, but acting styles it's very different because yeah, Roshan is very methodical. Zarin is not so rigid. I mean, she's not that. So Roshan knows all the dialogues in the scene and all, uh, and he has a very structured way. Zarin, her theater training is helping her in doing that, but she's not as methodical. She does very spontaneous things also. Uh, Nandacharan is completely different league. I mean, I'm like, uh, I don't even know. I mean, I mean, we make fun of directors who say that they forgot to tell cut, seeing the performance and all. But my experience usually is that I'm like laughing out loud, amazed at how he's doing. Like when we shoot close-ups, usually we prom. I mean, there won't be any other actors, and usually the camera and the actor will be there, and someone will be prompting the other person's dialogues. Roshan can't do that. Roshan wants that real environment to be there. He said, "I want the actor to be." To be on the opposite side, or he wants me to deliver it because I'll give it in the proper modulation. Nanducharan is like, I don't want prawns. You tell me what all are there, and so there are. There's one specific thing I still cherish is that there is a conversation, and he has three dialogues at three different parts of the conversation, responding to three different things, totally different things. He said, in one take, I'll do everything, and then one take, he gave the right modulation, right emotion to each of these three, and I'm like, what is happening here? Because he had a 1 day planned for all his close-ups, and in half a day everything is getting over. So yeah, I mean, that was like an amazing experience.
That's the
And
experience of this actor.
yeah, it's his experience, and then people were trying to scare me saying that it's very difficult to handle senior actors. I don't know anything. I mean, this everything that is happening is my first experience, but I found that uh, I mean, the first day when I narrated the script itself, I think he said that I said, I just have done these two films, I don't have much experience in. He said, none of that is required. I understood that you have your stuff in your head. That's the only thing that you need. I think that respect was there right from the beginning. So whenever I wanted some change, I just had to convince him that this is why I am telling this. He would do that. And there are things when I failed to convince him also. He said, I don't think it's that way, but since you want it that way, I'll give that kind of a take also for that. So I mean, I didn't have any issues, and it was very smooth. And Anand is like, he's ready for anything, any
Okay,
time. I
okay.
mean, yeah,
And he's very flexible also. But then
yeah.
uh, coming to like the actor part is very interesting, and we are anxiously waiting for Ithiri Neram or a little while. All the films that be it Athisayangalude Venal or Daayam, you always experimented with the structure of narrative. It started right from Amguleechalitham. The way you narrate a story or an idea, you play around with the structure, and uh, you have repeatedly said in your interviews that you deliberately make an attempt to stay clear of the usual cinematic tropes. So what I felt watching your films is that you give a lot of space for the audience to interpret. You leave the narrative open-ended. So how effective do you find that this leaving the narrative open-ended is helping you in connecting with the audience? I am asking you this because both Athisayangalude Venal and Daayam had an extensive yeah, run at international film festivals. It has toured the UK Asian Film Festival, the New York Indian Film Festival, and the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne. Uh, so, where you will be presenting the film in a different cultural milieu altogether. So, how do people connect to this narrative when you leave it open?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that it started, I think, with Anguleechalitham, where yeah, the script, as I said, on that basic narrative, I added layers, and a lot of such layers came during the post production also. In terms of so there are a lot of things we added later in VFX in Anguleechalitham, which it is impossible to find. All those in Athisayangalude Venal also, there are elements we placed later using VFX, and in the audio tracks also there are elements. So and then I the way Anguleechalitham was received by people, the comments I started getting, uh, I found that it is working in some levels. I can't say that it was completely planned in Anguleechalitham, but I understood that there are certain things that I did that are working. So one of the things that someone Anguleechalitham had its first screening at the Vibgyor film festivals in Thrissur. So there was an Assamese filmmaker who came there. I didn't know her, and she didn't interact with me. A week later, she sent me a message. I mean, she found me on Facebook, and sent me a message saying that I am this person. I watched your film there. I'm still thinking about it, so I thought I'll let you know about it. So, and I was like, okay, this is something that I should strive for in whatever I do. It should have an impact. It should have a lasting impact, or it should leave people wondering what would happen to these characters, what just happened. So the end should not be the end. That sort of became a mission for me. Uh, so. Even in Alshangal, it is supposed to the ending on one level, on the surface it's a happy ending. I mean, the problems are solved, but then it is not. It is actually a sad ending where you are trying to um, conform a child who has no boundaries in his imagination to the way you imagine. And still I am ending it with a hope that he is still not completely drawn to it. He's still looking away from all those things. And even a small niche of people is getting this, is giving me hope to experiment with that more. Dayam, I would say that in that way, it is less experimental in that way. It is less open ended. But again, I would say that the end is not the end. The end is her beginning of a new journey. She's just starting a new journey of realizations, of resistance, of probably a rebellion. I don't know, but she's starting that journey. The end is not the end; it is the beginning of her coming of age. Uh, so yeah, I mean that is there. Then. The cinematic looking away from the cinematic tropes, as I said, I mean, I know that all of these films would have a much wider popular appeal if I had been very lavish with the music, been very I mean, nowadays we keep on hearing about the lowering attention spans and how films have to be very fast to connect with people. I haven't done, including Ithiri Neram, I haven't done any of such things. And my hope is that there are things that are engaging enough. If you give them some time, or if you give it a chance, it will surely connect with audiences. So that is shying away from the cinematic tropes. And connecting with the audience, as I said, one of the things that Anish, the writer of Athisayangalude Venal, and I always talk about when we discuss others films and our films, is that it has to be grounded. The films have to be grounded to work anywhere. So if they are really grounded, they will work anywhere, they will work universally. So the festivals you mentioned, one thing is that they are most of them are Indians. It's not a completely foreign audience, but the culture is of course different from people living abroad and here. But still, these emotions, I think, are the same. For instance, the watch in Athisayangalude Venal, we actually started. I mean, something, a device which brings invisibility, being a watch, is something that we got from Mr. India, which is a part of our collective
That clue
memory.
is also given in the film itself.
Yes, yes, we have referred that also. So beyond that, and then once we take a device like that, we are thinking of what more we can do with it. So it became his father's watch and became a very emotional thing, which he is giving up at the end, with the hope that there will be someone who is more in need of that device than him. One a person who watched this, he's the curator of the UK Film Festival, which the film went to. So he narrated an instance in his life, like his father was a poet, and he had a constant exchange of letters with a lady who is living in Australia. He was living in, I think, South Africa, and this lady was in Australia, and she was going through a bad marriage and all, and his poetry was her only solace in that life. And finally, when this person, the poet, the father passed away, uh, the son informed that the person has passed away, and the lady told, can you send something that uh, belongs to him, that belonged to him, as a memory? And so the son thought that a watch would be the ideal thing, because that's something that he really associated with the dad, and he sent her the watch to Australia. And he said, I mean, it really connected with me. So that's how connections happen. You don't know what get connected, but if you're really grounded, if you're really being honest with the situations, your characters, their intentions and all, I think it gets connected. uh, so Ithiri Neram has a Zippo lighter as a motive, and a friend who, not a motive. I mean, it's something like it is there. A friend who watched the film informally said that that's the thing that that connected with her, because her boyfriend has a lighter, Zippo lighter. So that's how things are. I mean,
Okay, but then even when we are speaking about experiments or the way you approach a film or a narrative, at the end of the day, we need people to watch this film.
yeah,
There are a lot of experiments happening right now in Malayalam film and in Indian film, general note. But post-COVID situation has changed everything the way, because right in the beginning you said in our teenage there was nothing but theaters where we can go and watch films. There was no other option for us. Whereas in post-COVID, the options are plenty. Like it opened up like anything. It opened up huge amount of possibilities where we have all the OTT platforms there. Uh, so, my question is like, are our filmmakers who are trying to do more things to you, even while being grounded, as you said, trying to do experiments with the narrative, are they real mature enough to take this challenge of having so many opportunities to reach out to so many people across the world, not just to Kerala? You are not, when you are talking about releasing a film in theater, you are talking about people watching the film in Kerala. Now we are talking about people watching it across the world. So, what are the possibilities of this scenario, and what are the challenges?
So yeah, I mean the internet, as I was mentioning before, also internet was the biggest game changer in terms of bringing films to us and taking films, our films, giving us avenues to express ourselves. Uh, I mean, YouTube has given rise to a lot of maybe a generation of filmmakers, even in Kerala. Um, so, and so you started the question by the mentioning the monetary part also, or the financial part also,
And reaching out
uh,
to people.
reaching out to people. Yeah. So one thing that it was during the pandemic time that OTTs became so much prevalent in India. Uh, so the question, uh, it's twofold, because the internet opened up scopes that the that didn't exist before that. uh, but if you are looking at uh, and as a direct effect of that, it created an explosion of content also. So the problem, the possibility is that anyone can put across their work to the whole world to see. But the challenge is that there is lot of because of this explosion of content, there is so much clutter out there. It's very, very difficult for your work to stand out. I think that's the biggest challenge that everyone is facing now. And unfortunately, uh, the the algorithms of all these is skewed against individual creators, I would say, because all of these are driven by profit and money and all. So I mean, the simple example I gave is that if I put a photo of anything, there's a certain reach in the social media platforms. But even when I put a poster of a film, saying when these platforms realize that my intention is promoting my film, the reach it gives to the post is like marginally, like significantly less. So that's how the algorithms work. uh, so there is a senior filmmaker who has told me this point, that I became where the status I got as a filmmaker was also thanks to the time when I started filmmaking, where there were not so many of such films around, and my film was good, it got noted, and I received accolades for that. He said your film is also as good, about Athisayangalude Venal, but the problem is that there are a lot of good content out there, and it has become challenging to stand out. So I think that is the underlying problem. So you have to be either really, really good to stand out, or you have to have this huge mechanism that can support you, which I think applies to all the. So uh, I mean, Adishangal Venal was made in 2017, Daayam last year, but I understand that Amguleechalitham even before that, 2013. But you heard about these films very recently only, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, last month there was a screening of Adishangal Venal at Ottapalam, at a film festival. They said that we want that film because there are a lot of people who haven't watched that film. Yesterday, I mean, next week, Daayam is being screened at a festival at Iringalikuda. And the moment I sent their bio, my bio to them, they said, "Oh, you are the person who made Adishangal Venal. We had heard a lot about this film. We couldn't see it back then. Can we screen that also in one of our monthly screenings later?" So even the assumption is that okay, this much exposure it got, it was in Mami, it was in IFFK, so people will reach, I mean, it will reach people, or people will reach to me. So the reason they said was, we heard about this film but we couldn't contact you. So yeah, so I mean, such things are there, like in the clutter, a lot of things are getting lost. I'm not talking about just my films, that there will be many, a lot of films
Yeah.
that is getting lost also. Again, the internet was supposed to give a shelf space to all these films and a shelf life to all these films. But sadly, there are gatekeepers who are controlling what should be displayed in these shelves, and they favor a certain kind of content which is mainstream, and there also these individual creators are missing out.
It has been a wonderful talk, interaction with you, Prasanth. We have been speaking for more than 1.5 hours. But before we end, I would like the participants to get one more, introduce to one more angle of yours, which is you had a movement called One Inch Barrier, which is into translation and subtitling. And I wanted particularly to raise this issue because subtitling is one area that has broken all the barriers. Even Roshan has become such an acceptable actor, non-recognizable across uh, languages, because the recent series that he has featured in Poacher uh, is one of the many series that I have found online where there is no restriction in language. Uh, the characters shift organically from one language to another, and we don't know the difference because of the quality of subtitling that is happening. The subtitling has changed over the years from very absurd, totally unconnected, totally wrong subtitles to something that can add value to the film and break the barriers and reach out to more people. So, as someone who has been in this subtitling and translation for quite a long time, what is your take on that? And we'll listen to that, and then before we end this amazing conversation.
Yeah, so I got interested in subtitling because again, this cross section of technology and humanities. So I think it wasn't during my magazine editing time in Infosys that I started to write in English in a big way, and then I understood that I'm started to think in English also. Then this became easy. This translation became an easy thing. I was translating poems and posting online and all, and subtitle was also something that has been always there, because one of our early exposure to films was through Doordarshan and the movies, the other language movies that would come during the Sunday afternoon, which had subtitles. So I think that was the start of the training uh, of watching a film with subtitles. So later on, when internet came and I watched subtitles, the subtitles became this bridge to access content from anything, any language. And I realized that subtitle is the language. The actual language doesn't matter. Subtitle is the language. So I often joke that. So yeah, I mean, before the thing that you mentioned, like years before this, I was wondering why it's not happening. Why are people naturally not slipping from one language to other, like the way many of us do, as we skip from English uh, to Malayalam and otherwise. But finally it has come, thanks to all these OTTs, and since the OTT boom started, people have paid attention to good subtitles, and people realize the value of it. And it was around the time then we also entered the field. One of our significant works was The Great Indian Kitchen. Again, it happened through my friendship with GOVB. But I mean, we were like super proud that we were we have a lot to owe, to claim in making it such a universal success, the film. So yeah, but having said all that, and after I think we started in 2021 or something. Even after that, a lot of people have entered this subtitling thing. There are a lot of people who have started up their own establishment doing this. Still, I see funny, unintentionally funny subtitles that you mentioned in even very recent releases, also big releases also. I mean, it all boils down to the fact how much care the filmmakers give in making the film. And many people think of subtitling as a very easy thing. They think that if you know both languages and if you know both basic translation, you can do that. But it's a very, very involved task where you are actually not subtitling languages, you are subtitling cultures. You are making one culture which is accessible to only a small group of people, accessible to everyone. So we spend a lot of time when doing our film. Even Ithiri Neram subtitling is happening, and the reviewing is happening, taking a long time. And the questions we ask are like, if one person who is in Japan, will he understand this? The way it is, will he understand the joke? Will he understand the context? Will he understand the emotion? Will a person in Latin America understand this? So that those are the kind of situations where we put in when we do this. And I don't think a lot many people are doing that. It's very sad that and again, I mean, the
People
recognition
tend to go
also,
literally on this.
people tend to go literally. They or they use a lot of yeah, literally. And I mean, you can't translate jokes literally from
Yeah,
one
true.
cultural context to other. So people don't understand that while doing so. I mean, I think a lot more seriousness should be there, considering the fact that you are just opening up the film to the entire world by doing this small. It's not a small act at all. So that's how it is. Yeah.
So thank you, Prashant, for this long
Yeah.
chat that we had
Yeah,
about
it's very long. I feel
but
bad
then
that
we could learn because people have been asking me in the chat room about
oh,
more about your films. So we do look forward to having avenues where we can watch your films.
yeah,
Uh,
actually Vallath is a very good place to I had a lovely screening of Athisayangalude Venal. It's something I
and you had
still
a very
cherish.
interactive session there.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do look forward to Ithiri Neram and or a little while where have high expectations. And also like even for the Athisayangalude Venal and Daayam, we hope that it's made available in OTTs where people can watch it. Uh, and also all the best for your Ithiri Neram. We are waiting for the more films to come from your end. On that note, thank you for joining us and
Yeah,
sharing your thoughts about filmmaking.
yeah,
I think it's going to be a lesson for all of us in how to uh, find film as a medium for creative expression. Thanks a lot.
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining here.